Creation, his story begun. Genesis chapters 1 to 11. The cast of characters involves three main players. The first being God, who's been defined by Augustus Hopkins Strong as the infinite and perfect triune spirit in whom all things have their source, support, and end. The second character are angels, powerful, intelligent spirit beings who serve God, according to 2 Peter 2:5, Hebrews 1:14, Job 38, verses 4 to 7. And the third characters in this story are humans, finite personal beings created with similarities to God to be able to relate to and represent him. Genesis chapter 1, verses 26 to 28. Then God said, "Let us make man in our image, according to our likeness, and let them rule over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the sky, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth." God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him. Male and female he created them. God blessed them, and God said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth and subdue it, and rule over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the sky, and over every living thing that moves on the earth." The drama begins with the paradise God created. Genesis chapter 1, verse 31. God saw all that he had made, and behold, it was very good. God's will was being done in heaven and on earth until paradise was ruined, first by angelic rebellion. In some unexplained way, pride arose in the heart of the devil, and he went on to lead an angelic rebellion where some became his followers in opposition to God, now being designated his, that is Satan's, angels. 1 Timothy 3:6 and Revelation 12, verses 3 and 4 and 9. And not a new convert, so that he will not become conceited and fall into the condemnation incurred by the devil. Then another sign appeared in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his heads were 7 diadems, and his tail swept away 1/3 of the stars of heaven and threw them to the earth. And the great dragon was thrown down, the serpent of old, who is called the devil and Satan, who deceives the whole world. He was thrown down to the earth, and his angels were thrown down with him. As a result, a counterfeit kingdom came into existence, in which Satan is the god of this world, and has great authority over the kingdoms of this world, ruling a kingdom of darkness, disobedience, and unbelief. 2 Corinthians 4:4. In whose case the god of this world has blinded the minds of the unbelieving, so that they might not see the light of the gospel of the glory of Christ, who is the image of God. Luke chapter 4, verses 5 and 6. And he led him up and showed him all the kingdoms of the world in a moment of time. And the devil said to him, "I will give you all this domain and its glory, for it has been handed over to me, and I give it to whomever I wish." Colossians 1:13. For he rescued us from the domain of darkness and transferred us to the kingdom of his beloved Son. Ephesians 2:1 and 2. And you were dead in your trespasses and sins, in which you formerly walked according to the course of this world, according to the prince of the power of the air, of the spirit that is now working in the sons of disobedience. God's authority had been usurped and needed to be restored. To make things worse, the devil ruined paradise for mankind by enticing human rebellion as well. Genesis chapter 3, verses 1 to 6. Now the serpent was more crafty than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. And he said to the woman, "Indeed, has God said, you shall not eat from any tree of the garden?" The woman said to the serpent, "From the fruit of the trees of the garden we may eat. But from the fruit of the tree which is in the middle of the garden, God has said, you shall not eat from it or touch it, or you will die." The serpent said to the woman, "You surely will not die. For God knows that in the day you eat from it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." When the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was a delight to the eyes, and that the tree was desirable to make one wise, she took from its fruit and ate, and she gave also to her husband with her, and he ate. The heart of the matter was the desire to be like God. Genesis chapter 3, verse 5. Henry Thiessen writes, Satan's temptation may be summed up as appealing to man in this way. It made man desire what God had forbidden, to know what God had not revealed, and to be what God had not intended for him to be. The results of this rebellion were guilt, separation, and alienation from God and other people, and a moral corruption which passed on to the entire race. Genesis chapter 3, verses 7 to 19. Then the eyes of both of them were opened, and they knew that they were naked. And they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves loin coverings. They heard the sound of the Lord God walking in the garden in the cool of the day. And the man and his wife hid themselves from the presence of the Lord God among the trees of the garden. Then the Lord God called to the man and said to him, "Where are you?" He said, "I heard the sound of you in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid myself." And he said, "Who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree of which I commanded you not to eat?" And the man said, "The woman whom you gave to be with me, she gave me from the tree, and I ate." Then the Lord God said to the woman, "What is this that you have done?" And the woman said, "The serpent deceived me, and I ate." The Lord God said to the serpent, "Because you have done this, cursed are you more than all cattle, and more than every beast of the field. On your belly you will go, and dust you will eat all the days of your life. And I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. He shall bruise you on the head, and you shall bruise him on the heel." To the woman he said, "I will greatly multiply your pain in childbirth. In pain you will bring forth children. Yet your desire will be for your husband, and he will rule over you." Then to Adam he said, "Because you have listened to the voice of your wife, and have eaten from the tree about which I commanded you, saying, you shall not eat from it. Cursed is the ground because of you. In toil you will eat of it all the days of your life. Both thorns and thistles it shall grow for you, and you will eat the plants of the field. By the sweat of your face you will eat bread till you return to the ground, because from it you were taken, for you are dust, and to dust you shall return." And then Genesis chapter 6, verses 5 to 7. Then the Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great on the earth, and that every intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. The Lord was sorry that he had made man on the earth, and he was grieved in his heart. The Lord said, "I will blot out man whom I have created from the face of the land, from man to animals to creeping things and to birds of the sky, for I am sorry that I have made them." And in Genesis 11, verses 1 to 9. Now the whole earth used the same language and the same words. It came about as they journeyed east that they found a plain in the land of Shinar and settled there. They said to one another, "Come, let us make bricks and burn them thoroughly." And they used brick for stone, and they used tar for mortar. They said, "Come, let us build for ourselves a city, and a tower whose top will reach into heaven, and let us make for ourselves a name. Otherwise we will be scattered abroad over the face of the whole earth." The Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the sons of men had built. The Lord said, "Behold, they are one people, and they all have the same language. And this is what they began to do, and now nothing which they purpose to do will be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and there confuse their language so that they will not understand one another's speech. So the Lord scattered them abroad from there over the face of the whole earth, and they stopped building the city. Therefore its name was called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of the whole earth. And from there the Lord scattered them abroad over the face of the whole earth. God's people had been lost and needed to be rescued. How serious is our condition? John Cross, in The Stranger on the Road to Emmaus, lists 7 consequences of being part of a sinful human race. I am accused and found guilty of breaking God's perfect law. To break God's law is sin, and my sin incurs a sin debt, a consequence I must pay. The debt can only be paid by my death, a payment that is made for eternity in the lake of fire. It is impossible to keep God's law perfectly. Even when I try hard, I still find myself failing. In addition, Satan manipulates me to do his will. I am a slave. My sin has created a chasm, a barrier between God and me. I am a stranger. When I was born into this world, I joined forces with Satan, who also sinned against God. Having chosen my own way, I find myself in a spiritual wilderness, groping for truth. I am like a lost sheep. In the midst of this ruin of paradise, however, a promise of God shined light and hope in the darkness. Genesis 3:15. And I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. He shall bruise you on the head, and you shall bruise him on the heel. This message was obviously for Adam and Eve as well as for Satan. Stanley Ellison explains, in it, God prophesied that following a two-way enmity, 2 bruisings or crushings would take place. The woman's seed would crush the head of the serpent, and the serpent would crush the heel of the woman's seed. The 2 figures in this conflict are Christ, who was the seed born of a woman, Galatians 4:4, and Satan, the serpent of old, Revelation 12:9-22. By analyzing these 2 crushings, we get a thumbnail sketch of God's twofold program on earth. The first statement, he shall bruise you on the head, was a declaration that Christ would destroy the devil with a fatal blow. Jesus spoke of his future work of binding Satan, the strong man of this world system, and casting him out, Matthew 12:29. His death on the cross was the blow that would eventually destroy Satan. That final judgment will also include the destruction of his usurped, counterfeit kingdom. Their fulfillment, of course, will occur after Christ's millennial reign. This whole process by which Christ reclaims his authority in all realms and forever squelches rebellion is God's kingdom program. His kingdom sovereignty will be affirmed. The second crushing announced in Genesis 3:15 is the serpent's heel crushing of the woman's seed. This demonic assault occurred on the cross, where Satan was the driving force behind the crucifixion. As a heel crushing, it suggests the temporary nature of Christ's death, in contrast to the fatal crushing of the serpent. His death on the cross then became the foundation for God's redemptive program, providing salvation for mankind. How did the kingdom develop during the time covered by Genesis 1-11? In the Garden of Eden, the kingdom was initiated with Adam and Eve ruling as God's stewards over all creation, with responsibility for protecting and developing it. Genesis 1:26-28. Then God said, "Let us make man in our image according to our likeness, and let them rule over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the sky, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth." God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created them. Male and female he created them. God blessed them, and God said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth and subdue it, and rule over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the sky, and over every living thing that moves on the earth." Genesis 2:15-17. Then the Lord God took the man and put him into the Garden of Eden to cultivate it and keep it. The Lord God commanded the man, saying, "From any tree of the garden you may eat freely, but from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat, for in the day that you eat from it you will surely die." At the fall, the kingdom rule of mankind became corrupted, with man's sinful rebellion becoming so bad that God flooded the world and started over again with Noah's family. Genesis 3:6. When the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was a delight to the eyes, and that the tree was desirable to make one wise, she took from its fruit and ate. And she gave also to her husband with her, and he ate. Genesis 6:5-7. Then the Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great on the earth, and that every intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. The Lord was sorry that he had made man on the earth, and he was grieved in his heart. The Lord said, "I will blot out man whom I have created from the face of the land, from man to animals to creeping things and to birds of the sky, for I am sorry that I have made them." Genesis 9:1-7. After the flood. And God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. The fear of you and the terror of you will be on every beast of the earth and on every bird of the sky, with everything that creeps on the ground and all the fish of the sea. Into your hand they are given. Every moving thing that is alive shall be food for you. I give it all to you as I gave the green plant. Only you shall not eat the flesh with its life, that is, its blood. Surely I will require your lifeblood. From every beast I will require it, and from every man's brother, I will require the life of man. Whoever sheds man's blood, by man his blood shall be shed, for in the image of God he made man. As for you, be fruitful and multiply, populate the earth abundantly, and multiply in it." God again commanded them to fill the earth and rule it for him, but instead they rebelled with the Tower of Babel, only to be scattered by God. Genesis 11:4-9. They said, "Come, let us build for ourselves a city and a tower whose top will reach into heaven, and let us make for ourselves a name. Otherwise we will be scattered abroad over the face of the whole earth." And therefore its name was called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of the whole earth, and from there the Lord scattered them abroad over the face of the whole earth. In all this darkness there remained the obscure promise of the seed of the woman who would crush the serpent's head. Genesis 3:15. "And I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. He shall bruise you on the head, and you shall bruise him on the heel." How then were people saved during this period of time? Very little specific information about salvation is given in the opening 11 chapters of Genesis. We know that God covered the nakedness of Adam and Eve with animal skins, requiring the death of an animal. Genesis 3:21. The Lord God made garments of skin for Adam and his wife and clothed them. We know that people like Abel, Enoch, Noah, and others prayed to God, worshiped God with animal sacrifices, and walked with God. Genesis 4:4. Abel, on his part, also brought of the firstlings of his flock and of their fat portions, and the Lord had regard for Abel and for his offering. Genesis 4:26. To Seth, to him also a son was born, and he called his name Enosh. Then men began to call upon the name of the Lord. Genesis 5:22 and 24. Then Enoch walked with God 300 years after he became the father of Methuselah, and he had other sons and daughters. Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. Genesis 6:9. These are the records of the generations of Noah. Noah was a righteous man, blameless in his time. Noah walked with God. Noah's relationship with God is said to be based on God's favor or grace. Genesis 6:8. But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. It is only later that we learn from the writer of Hebrews that their relationship with God was based on faith. Hebrews 11, verses 4 through 7. By faith, Abel offered to God a better sacrifice than Cain, through which he obtained the testimony that he was righteous, God testifying about his gifts, and through faith, though he is dead, he still speaks. By faith, Enoch was taken up so that he would not see death, and he was not found because God took him up. For he obtained the witness that before his being taken up, he was pleasing to God. And without faith, it is impossible to please him. For he who comes to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of those who seek him. By faith, Noah, being warned by God about things not yet seen, in reverence, prepared an ark for the salvation of his household, by which he condemned the world, and became an heir of the righteousness which is according to faith.